Thank you all so much for being here today. Safety is definitely a topic that is discussed in a variety of situations and is a constant in our lives. When broken down, there are many categories. As I was skimming the internet and checking different things, it was interesting to see how many I thought about and then how many were applied in a different way. So there's environmental, physical, health, biological, psychological, and cyber, just to name a few. I'm specifically going to focus on 3 of them today, which is going to be environmental, physical, and cyber, as they can all circle back to the importance of understanding your circumstances. So many of you have heard me talk about situational awareness. And since it's such a constant part of my life, I truly often forget just how it's not normal terminology for others. So it's more common for the military, fire, and law enforcement. Hence why this is something that's definitely on my mind constantly. So I hope you guys are a little bit prepared for a crash course and some participation, if you're all willing, as we go through this speech today. Situational awareness is knowing what is going on around you. It involves a mental map that helps you understand where you are, what is surrounding you, and what challenges might lie ahead. This ability allows you to see clearly what is happening so that you can develop an effective coping plan in case something were to happen. So, how can we apply this? We often talk about our 5 senses that allow us to really be in tune with what's going on around us. So just simply sight. Every single one of you are watching me prepare this and do this speech right now. There's different things that you're noting. You're noting that my mouth is moving. You're noting that I'm going to use my hands or different things. And then sometimes that'll be commented on later. When it comes to hearing, you're listening to what I'm saying, but that whole process is still encompassed with what you're seeing. Okay. Smell right now in the situation we're in, because we're not in a live audience, you can't smell different things that are going on around you if someone's wearing perfume or if I'm too close to you and I have bad breath. So that's maybe a good thing, because right now I'm kind of close to the screen. The touch portion, we don't have a situation where you guys can touch me or can really engage with what we're doing. And then the last one that we normally talk about is taste. So is it something that sometimes can apply with regards especially to smell? Today, we're not going to talk about that one, but we will discuss the combination of senses. So although our brains have separate areas for each sensory system, we are born with the ability to combine these senses, like taste and smell. This process is called multisensory integration, which helps us to create a complete picture of our current reality. So let's do a little exercise. To demonstrate this, if a few of you be willing, I'd like you all to stand up. I'm going to do the same. And I'd like you to see, so if you stand, I'd like you to just go on 1 foot for 10 seconds and see how easy that is. Now, as I can see some of you, right now what's happening is a little bit of balance, and that's fine. Okay? All of you seem to be pretty simple at doing that. Put your foot back down. Now I'd like you to do that again. I'd like you to shut your eyes and do that again for 10 seconds. I see that Sam fell down. Some of you, the balance is different, so I am not closing my eyes, but that's part of my speech. You guys get to be my examples. Okay? So the big thing with that is it changes our perspective. So you guys are all good. Everyone can sit down. Now we're going to do another one, and this one takes a second. But I would like you all to do kind of the same similar thing, but sitting down. I'd like you to close your eyes. And if you can tell me what's happening when you close your eyes, so just listen to the instructions for a minute, then if you can either really quickly, you can kind of come on and unmute yourself and just say what it is, and then we'll go from there. So everyone shut their eyes. I'm going to do the first one. Can anyone tell me what I was doing?
Nothing.
You didn't hear anything?
Couldn't hear anything. It's like all the air conditioner noise there.
Okay, what about this? You still can't hear anything? Oh, interesting. Okay. What about now?
No.
Huh. Okay, well, what I was doing was pouring water. So interesting because that's right in front of my mic, and I did test this earlier to see if it'd work. Okay, let's try a different one. Okay, eyes closed. Did anyone hear that? Okay, well, this test, I guess you all can look and we'll see the difference as to why this is important. I am flipping through a book and doing the flipping of the pages, okay, in front of the mic. And the last one I was going to do, so you'll see it, and I don't know if you can hear it when I'm doing it, is ripping a piece of paper. So that's good to know. So as part of that demonstration, the whole idea was to kind of see what we can do and what we can hear differently. Being that didn't work, that's unfortunate, but you get a different part that when you are able to open your eyes, you're able to see that it's happening, and sometimes the circumstances change. So we may be thinking, how can this apply to our safety? Just a simple fact that you can think about it can change the way that we move forward in life. So little things, how our sight, the things that we're seeing, the things that we're hearing can apply. So I recently took a POCMAN course, which is a Patrol Officers Casualty Management course. And during this training, we're basically required to do many different scenarios while we are injured. And you can't use certain body parts. But I'm still required to get through the situation. So what they had us do, they had us close our eyes. And in one situation, I literally closed my eyes. I stood there, and the person in front of me, they said, go. The person in front of me took a taser knife and slashed my arm. And then I'm required now, because this person is in very quick proximity to me, I'm required to deal with the situation. So if somebody has a knife and they're that close to me and they're trying to hurt me, I had to then deal with tourniquets, and I had to shoot the person. So different scenario for most people, but the fact is I had to deal with that threat because that person is trying to harm me. Okay. We also did other things where we had to do things in the dark because as a police officer, we have to deal with patrol stopping and different things, traffic stops. We were also able to go into a situation where we're trying to help others and we're dealing with an ailment where maybe we have been shot or hurt or different things like that. So those are the types of things that we were trying to deal with. So in practicing these examples, sometimes we can take for granted and we may not recognize how important our combined senses are. So it is very important that when you are out something else, what we need to do to get through the situation that we're still in. The next kind of topic I'm going to talk about is physical. So when it comes to our health, there are many things that can be affected, especially if we have an ailment. Have any of you ever had an injury that required you to change how you did something? By a show of hands. Okay, perfect. So I recently had a really random knee injury at work, and I found it really affected my ability to do things with going upstairs. Most of the other things were fine, but going upstairs was difficult. So I had to go to physiotherapy, and they worked on strengthening my ligaments. And some of the things they did were just kind of what we were talking about. They had me stand for 20 seconds on each leg, which I thought was random. However, I realized it was actually hard. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I should do this more often to not just use both my legs and just use one. Or they had me do where you would stand on your leg and then you'd go up for the calf raises with one leg. And even that was difficult. So it's interesting to see just very simple things that we don't think about can really improve the strength in my knee. And just something for you, if any of you have knee problems, then that could be a little tidbit tip. But the whole point was it had to rebuild my muscles so that they could work properly. There's a podcast that I listen to where it encourages different forms of physical activity, health, and strength. They gave an example of Jason Bourne and a specific scene. So if any of you have seen the Bourne series, This scene is where he ends up in this restaurant with this girl and he's talking to her and he sits in a certain place in the room and he literally like looks around. He says, I know things I shouldn't know. And she's like, okay, kind of crazy guy. And he's like, I know where the best spot for a gun would be, and it's in this car outside. I know how much change is in this person's pocket. I know that I should sit here and what's the best exit so that if I needed to get out of this situation, it's going to happen. Why do I know that? And this is a big part to that whole physical understanding of our situation. So when we think of our safety, how important is it for us to know just certain safety tips? A huge piece, and this is a couple tips that I'm going to give you, a huge piece is voice, okay? You need to know it, you need to use it, and you need to let people know that if you're ever in a situation where you feel unsafe, that you're there and that you are a person, okay? So I did this example with some youth, and basically all these young girls that I was talking to, I'm like, I just want you to tell me to get back. So I'd walk towards them, and I'd be like, you need to stop me. And lots of them would be like, stop. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm going to keep moving towards you if you say a low stop like that. Stop. Okay, perfect. The whole idea is that it's getting someone's attention. The next part is our stance. So a big thing, I don't know if you'll fully be able to see, I really was trying to work with the camera angles today, is you don't want to just stand straight forward. You don't want your legs to be straight. You want to have a little cantered back. And this is something that Stephanie will know a little bit as well. You want it to be in a different stance where you're not quite center. You want to make yourself smaller and you want to be in a position where you feel prepared to move. Okay. The next part is you want to be ready with your hands. You want to make sure that you don't want them in your pockets. Okay. You don't necessarily want them folded. You want to be ready that you could do something. So if you want to kind of have them in front, if there's ever a scenario that you need, you want to have them in front and ready to go so that if you have to block something, if you have to engage with your hands, you can. Because your hands are a huge part that protects yourself. Okay? And the last one is eye contact. When you're doing things, make eye contact. People recognize that you are who you are and that you're a person and that you notice them. And that's a really big thing. So the last piece I want to show is just a simple wrist grab, actually. Okay? So if someone was to grab your wrist and they grab it with one hand, if you see the spot that is the most open here it's like I have all my fingers in this whole part of my hand. This part I don't. So if you're able to get your hand out and go towards the finger and thumb, that would be the easiest place to get out. Now you may have to move your wrist in, so kind of like this, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that makes sense. You go like this because it gives a little bit more whatever, and then you come out. So just like a simple little thing for future reference in case you ever have to use that. So our next section we go on is cyber. So we live in a world where everything is at our fingertips, telephone, TV, everything. So it's a really interesting piece as adults that we can just go and find out any of the information. And I know when I started out as an adult, that was not the fact. I had a little flip cell phone and I didn't have Google on it and I couldn't do anything. So I still had to do the research the normal way, like computers, even the computers weren't great at that time, but I had to go to the library and find out in books. Now I can just look on my phone. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. But the whole point is we have it at our fingertips. And that means people have a lot of information even about us at our fingertips. So I'd really encourage all of you to be in a situation where you kind of Google yourself. I've talked about this before. Check what's online about yourself. And just recognize that the world is changing. So we also have to look at how we portray ourselves. What are we showing online? What are we demonstrating to others and the world around us about ourselves? And what do you choose to share about your family? So if you have kids or family members, what do you choose to share about them? How many photos are online with your kids? Should we have that many photos online with our kids? When they're 18, are they going to have this many things? Well, I was in schools, we attended a course where literally the person went online and he pretended to be a youth. And what ended up happening was very quickly, someone went on and he pretended to be an unsuspecting teen and someone started talking to that person like he was a 13-year-old girl, which was super inappropriate. But all of a sudden he just turns to us and he says, here's another file I have to investigate. And so when you look at stuff online, sometimes we can become people, but people can also become people. With AI now becoming so advanced, voices, videos, lots of these things are made to represent people. And so it's something that we need to be more aware of. So I'm just going to go back to one little simple thing that I'd like you to think about with the online thing that people do. So a lot of us with kids going back to school, and this may just apply to us, but if you're a grandparent, this may apply to your kids as well. A lot of the families put out the things where it's like, hey, here's my sign. This is, I wrote Sam in here, Sam. It had nothing to do with you, but it's like, hey, this is my sign. I'm Sam. I'm 8 years old. I go to Jenny Emery Elementary School, and my teacher is this. And that's great, but it's a little bit too much information for the internet. They can find your kids very quickly, anybody, and it's not something they need to know. Now, if you want to say, your kid wants to say, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up, that's great. They don't need to have their name on there. They don't need to say their age. There's very simple things that they can do. So that being said, I'll just do a couple quick tips. So when you're doing things and you're focusing on what's going on around you, take your earbuds out. When you're walking, don't just be staring at your phone. When you're doing things, you're missing out on what's going on around you. You're missing out on the world. You're missing out on the beauty of it. And so I'd truly like to encourage you to focus on things that are going around you and how important both the relationships are that are around you and just being aware of what's going on. Now, as you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure I've touched on so many topics that you guys might have questions about. And so I'm going to open the floor to that with questions at this point. And thank you so much for just being here. And I hope that you guys can all become more aware of your scenarios and situations with you. So if there's any questions.
Dana, I've got a question.
Sure.
You said that when you're standing, have 1 foot forward, 1 foot back so that you're a narrower target.
Yeah.
Does it matter what foot is where?
Typically, your stronger foot is back. So it allows you most, like how I've always trained, and like I can do it my other foot back, but you want your stronger foot just so you can engage more. If you have to kick, if you have to punch, typically your strong side is back. Your other side is more for blocking or stopping things. Now, like I said, probably more of a, like there's different ways that I've been taught, but that was the main.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
My cousin is in the ICE department or whatever in Calgary, so she deals with the cyber ickiness of it all. I'm just wondering, as like a RCMP, do you get those guys in to help you train, or how much of that training do you get to like identify cyber stuff?
Okay. So we have specific officers who are also part of the ICE unit. And then they work together with all the different people throughout all of Alberta. And so when there's like a big file, it's all of these guys or girls who work together, get together, they do a whole huge investigation, and then typically then they all come in and kind of hit the person's house where they go after all of their electronics and take them all out of commission.
I got a question, Dana. What are some complacent behaviors we have that we should, maybe be more aware of?
I think like one of the main ones, and I kind of touched on a little bit, is your cell phone. A lot of us will walk around without recognizing, hey, like what's actually going on around us. Another one is locking our doors. So a lot of people don't like, especially small towns, it's like, oh, we're good. But we've had lots of situations where people just walk into people's houses, and then now you're all of a sudden in a whole different scenario where you're dealing with something that you don't expect, because you expect it to be family friends that walk into your house. You don't expect it to be that. Another one would be when you're getting gas in your car, locking your doors would be something, because there's been situations where people literally come in the back seat. You don't realize they're there, especially if you have to go in. Lots of people pay at the pump now, but it's still a good thing. Lock your doors when you're going to different things. Don't unlock your door in a parking lot before you kind of get to your car, especially if it's dark, those types of things. Thanks, Shayla.
Hey, Dana, this is Pam. I had a question just more like every day. So love your call out of wearing AirPods. So I typically have one in my ear, not the other. So that's become a little more natural. Are there maybe one or two other tips that even like in everyday life, like when you stop at the gas station, again, just be focused more so? So just wondering if there's any kind of everyday tips that would just help us become a little bit more aware.
I would literally suggest, so say that you're walking and running, and this is kind of like an example that we actually had, and I'm nearly out of time here, so I'll just really quick, where look around you. So a lot of people will continue to do whatever activity they're doing. They might pass people, and what ends up happening, we actually had a scenario here in Lethbridge where this lady, she was running in our local park, and this person went by her, and then I literally turned and started to follow her. And she actually, to this day, still doesn't know, and we don't know who she was. But what ended up happening is a person who is on their balcony observed this situation happen, and they like got on their bike and started going after this person to make sure that this guy didn't hurt this girl. And this girl like went all into a whole different like, I don't know what you call it, suburb of where we live. And she still didn't know. She just continued running. And this guy actually got on his bike, got right up behind the guy. And then the other guy recognized he was being followed and took off over a fence. So I would just really recommend that, especially as women, but still as men, that if you're doing something here outside and you've passed anybody, just to literally take a turn around every once in a while to make sure no one's behind you. Because really what it comes down to is distance. Like for us, it's like time equals distance. And that's literally what they train us, so that if you can get something else in between you, that will be sometimes a huge difference for you or like your kids. Same type of thing, like telling youth, telling your grandkids, same thing, like keep your distance from people, use a tree, use a car, use a bush, whatever. Make sure you have distance between people, especially if they're trying to cause you harm. Thanks, Pam. So I think we're pretty close to the end here. Sorry if I've gone over a little bit. Definitely appreciate all of you participating in the Q&A, and thank you.